Hey there, everybody. Nikki Burnett here, Taste Life Nutrition. I'm a functional nutritionist and I practice strategic evidence-based consulting, and it's been a while since I've been on. So I wanted to jump on. There's something that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while, which is a little bit ironic because we're now in August. It's the end of summer. I'm looking outside. It's rainy and dreary here in Colorado, and I think about 55 degrees, which my understanding is the coolest here that's been in August since the 30s. So the weather's a little odd, but we've had a beautiful summer. I have been in the sun as much as I possibly can. I love the sun. I'm originally from Texas. I love the heat, and I love how the sun feels on my body. But you know, when I do that and I get a pretty good tan, people are like, isn't it safe, and how scary is it that you're in the sun all the time, and aren't you afraid of getting cancer, and aren't you afraid of, and don't you wear sunscreen and protect your skin, and all of these things. And I just think, no, I don't. The sun has been around longer than the human race has been around. It's there for a reason. So I really wanted to talk about it and give a little bit of information on the sun on our skin, on sunscreen, on vitamin D. I don't want to get too detailed, but I pulled up also a couple of articles that I like and appreciate that I think give some good information that I'll also post. But let's start with the basics. The sun is very healthy for us. Now, if you are a light-skinned person, then it's going to be important for you to be in the sun a little bit less or have a little bit more protection. I'm not talking about sunscreen. I'm just talking about protecting your skin from getting too pink. A little pink is good for us, not too pink. And then the more sun exposure we get, a little more of a tan we get, we're more protected from the exposure of the sun. So a little bit of color is a good thing. Now I understand that there are some people that are quite fair and get pink really quickly. And so protecting is important. You don't want to get burned. We don't want to peel, all of those things. So what do we want to do? Wear a hat, wear more clothes. Slathering ourselves with sunscreen every day, day in and day out, is excessively unhealthy. The toxins that are in the sunscreen, I'm going to say this brand, and I don't even know if it's okay, but I'm going to say it anyway because I believe that this brand claims to be a really great brand. They talk about how, hey Tina, they talk about how great they are for kids and for babies and for our skin, and they are so full of junk and toxins, it makes me sick to my stomach. So Neutrogena is a really bad brand for our skin. I don't trust anything that they have at this point that I've seen. If I'm wrong, that's okay. I'll check it out and I'll retract. But everything that I've seen is toxic and unhealthy. But I don't want to just pick on them. Most of the sunscreens out there that have the chemicals that are quote unquote protecting our skin are damaging. The only decent thing out there is a mineral-based sunscreen, and zinc oxide is a good mineral base that you can use periodically. I'm not going to say that I never use sunscreen, because if I'm out, my husband is a big fly fisherman, and having the water reflect under a hat can sometimes create more sun, right? If I'm out for hours and hours, I don't want that much sun. If we're skiing, the snow reflects on our skin and so can create a sunburn. So there are things that we obviously want to be aware of, but having the right sunscreen and wearing it only when you need it is what's very, very important. What is creating most of the cancer is what studies are showing, and I'm going to post this article that backs up what I'm saying, but what the studies are showing is it's the chemicals that we're putting on our skin, not the sun. The sun has been around for a very long time. The sun's very, very healthy. So let's talk about vitamin D. Actually, I want to go back real quick. So I'm going to read a couple of things that I highlighted from one of the articles. So one, there's 3 different types of skin cancers. Let's see. One concerning fact about skin cancer is that according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, rates have doubled in the last 30 years. While the use of sunscreen has also doubled, the CDC, AMA, and cancer industry continue to recommend people avoid the sun and use sunscreen while ignoring the importance of vitamin D and a healthy diet in skin care prevention. Another quote, or at least something that's in the article. Sorry, I'm losing my words, but it says one of the world's leading authorities on natural cancer cures, Dr. Leonard Caldwell, asserts that the chemicals in sunscreen cause most skin cancers and not the sun. Okay, one more that I highlighted, and then we're going to move on to vitamin D. In addition, a 2004 study in the medical journal The Lancet showed indoor workers were twice as likely to get skin cancer as those who spent more time in the sun. Paradoxically, outdoor workers have a decreased risk of melanoma compared with indoor workers, suggesting that chronic sunlight exposure can have a protective effect. The sun is important. Okay, so let's talk about the sun and vitamin D. The sun is what helps the skin to convert the vitamin D that we take in, that we eat in our food, or the supplements that we take. It converts it into the active form of vitamin D in our body. Vitamin D is not just a vitamin. It's now considered a hormone. It is so important in everything that we do, in all of our bodily processes, that it's considered a hormone. And that's a really important factor, because it is, it's important in our thyroid and in our immune system and in our gut health and in our mental and emotional health and in our cellular health. I mean, I can go on and on and on. So when I see, as you know, I run labs, and I run labs on everybody. Vitamin D is one that I will never, ever not do. And I see it low more than I see it high. I'm going to tell you that I saw it crazy low on my husband. I saw it was at, I hope he's okay with me saying this, I didn't ask him, but it was at 27. And so we were in his doctor's office when I saw it was at 27, and I about flipped my lid, and he says, "No, don't worry about it, just feed him a little more salmon, it'll be fine." I'm going to tell you something, feeding him a little bit of salmon is not what he needs. So when doctors tell you that they want your vitamin D over 30, that's great and fine, but it's very what's my word? It's not any. It's not right. It's too low. It's too low. Below 50 is too low. So when I'm looking, I want to see it above 60. I want to see it 70 and 80. If I'm working with a client who's got autoimmune condition, I want to see it at 100. And to say that 30 is a good number is a really bad thing. So it's not sufficient. So remember that. Look at your numbers when you're doing your labs, when your doctors, a lot of times they don't do vitamin D, but a lot of times they do. If they don't do it, request it. Always request your vitamin D, because knowing what your vitamin D level is going to let you know how much supplementation you might need. Now, another thing to take into consideration, well, so many things to take into consideration, but where we live as the United States. Now, there may be other people outside of the country that are watching this, but where the United States sits, we do not get the rays that these southern countries would get. So, and I'm not very good at this. I've read this and I've heard this throughout all of my nutrition training, but anyway, the fact is that we don't get a direct hit. So we don't necessarily get the sunlight that we need that's going to help us to convert the vitamin D efficiently. Okay, so that's one factor. So I'm told, well, I'm spending a lot more time in the sun now. Well, that's great, but if your numbers are still in the 20s or 30s or 40s, it's still not sufficient. Okay, so and for most of us, it doesn't make sense for us to spend all of our time outside to try to raise our levels. Now, so another major factor in our vitamin D levels is our genetics. Our genetics can dictate whether we do or do not utilize vitamin D properly, or whether it converts properly. So when I'm working with a client and I'm looking at genetics, there are what's called SNP. So SNPs are their epigenetic mutations, for lack of a better word, but SNP is a single nucleotide polymorphism. And so what that means is genetically there are things that can predispose us to metabolic pathways maybe not working quite the way that we would hope they would. And vitamin D is one of those. And so when I look at my clients' genetics, I can see that they either have all of the ability to convert their vitamin D. They maybe have half or 50% of the ability, or they may have none, all depending on if they don't have any of the SNPs, that's great. If they have one, it comes from one parent. If they have two SNPs, it comes from two parents. I happen to be right in the middle. I have one that comes from one parent. And so I am constantly checking my vitamin D levels. But if I see somebody that has two SNPs and their D is low, and I put them on D supplementation, we get it up, and I take them off, and their D drops again, we know that they pretty much are always going to need vitamin D supplementation. And then we just need to keep track of how much, depending on where their levels are. And we want to try to keep them at a good, nice, stable area, in my mind, right around 70 or 80, depending on the situation. So I try to watch that really closely. And I think it's very important. So understanding your genetics, understanding supplementation. So let's talk about vitamin D supplementation. There are a lot of people, and I have been guilty of this myself, and I don't do it as much anymore, but there are a lot of people that supplement strictly with vitamin D. We are learning that maybe that's not the best idea, maybe for a very short period of time, but like I've talked with calcium, vitamins and minerals and all of these processes that happen in our body, they don't happen because of one thing. We don't build bone only because of calcium. We don't need vitamin D only by itself. We have to have all of these cofactors that allow these supplements to these micronutrients to work and to do their job properly. So what the studies are now showing is that we really need to incorporate magnesium, which many of us are low on. Most of us are low in D, most of us are low in magnesium, as well as vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is really important for cardiovascular health. You can get great vitamin K2 in grass-fed butter, but not everybody can eat dairy. I would say a lot of people can't eat dairy, and probably for a lot of people it's not smart. If you have an autoimmune condition, you should never eat dairy, and you should never eat gluten, ever. They are inflammatory and will exacerbate your problem. So keep that in mind. But vitamin D is very important for anybody with any kind of autoimmune condition, as well as magnesium is important for everything. So we need to keep in mind that supplementation is not easy. Supplementation is not the end all be all, but it also can be very important. But you have to know how to supplement, when to supplement, why to supplement, and what's in the supplements that you're taking. There are supplements out there that can do more harm than good. And maybe it's a good supplement, but for the wrong person, it can do more harm than good. So you've got to have the information. You've got to be educated on your own situation to understand what it is that your body needs. You need to understand what the labs mean, or of course, go to somebody that does. That's why we have our own specialties, right? I like the geeky stuff. I like looking at the labs. I like understanding what's going on with the body and doing the detective work. Where what I don't like necessarily is the social media stuff. So I like doing stuff like this because I can talk about the geeky stuff, but I hire a specialist to help with social media because it's not my world. I hire a bookkeeper to help me with my bookkeeping because it's not my world, and it makes me crazy to even have to think about it. So understanding who you are and maybe finding somebody that can help you that likes the geeky sciencey stuff can be a good thing for you if you're confused on what it is that you need or when and how you need it. Let me talk real quick, or I want to go back to these articles and make sure that there's not something that I'm missing here. There's a part here that I highlighted that says the importance of vitamin D3, and I'll read this real quick. The best way to absorb adequate vitamin D is to get natural sunlight and avoid sunscreen. Vitamin D is essential in growing and maintaining strong bones, promoting healthy immune system, and protecting against various forms of cancer. Low vitamin D is linked to cancer, so be very aware of that. It's a fundamental element of human health. On the other hand, chronic vitamin D deficiency levels below 50 promotes cancer and disease and can wreak havoc on one's health. So this is a great article. It's actually from The Truth About Cancer. And if you don't know this organization, The Truth About Cancer, they are as good as it gets. Sorry, I've got dogs running around behind me. And so they're amazing at what they do. When I was dealing with cancer in both of my dogs, I went to their site all the time. I've got a ton of their information. If you have questions about cancer, go to thetruthaboutcancer.com. And there's also thetruthaboutdogcancer.com. They're doing amazing things. The other article is through Dr. Mercola. He talks about the magnesium and the K2 that is important to include along with vitamin D. I wouldn't be at all surprised if that probably really isn't sufficient either. What I know, and I'm not gonna hit on this too much because I've talked about it before, and I don't want to get too off topic, but one of the things that I talk a lot about is calcium and taking calcium supplementation. And calcium supplementation is showing to do more harm than good. And what we're told if we have our bones we've got osteopenia or osteoporosis, that we need to take more calcium. Well, here's what's happening is we are taking this 1,000 or 1,200 milligrams of calcium every day without its cofactors. Okay, so the calcium doesn't know where to go. And we're told that we need to take calcium with vitamin D. Okay, we need to take calcium with magnesium. Okay, there are actually something like 70 to 100 cofactors that actually help calcium get put into the bone matrix. On top of that is going to be hydrochloric acid, which is the acid in our stomach. As we age, we lose hydrochloric acid. So that's one of the first places I go when I see somebody that's low in calcium. I think, okay, what are the cofactors and not calcium that I want to add into a supplement to help to bring calcium up to par? Or do we want to add betaine hydrochloride, which is hydrochloric acid, or do we want to do both? Really depends on the person and on the situation. But all of these things are very important when there are that many cofactors in putting calcium into the bone matrix. What happens if calcium's just running around because it doesn't know where to go? What happens is it sits in the heart muscle, sits in the brain, sits in the breast tissue, sits in the kidneys. So we've heard of renal calcification and arterial calcification. All of these things are a problem because we're just taking supplements without understanding why and understanding the biochemistry. And that's what's really important, is understanding the biochemistry. It's not an easy thing to do, and we don't know everything. I don't know everything, but I'm going to tell you, I work really freaking hard to know as much as I can, because if I'm going to put it out there and if I'm going to talk to my clients, I want to know them as right as I possibly can be, but data does change. So I think I'm going to stop with that. I'm going to make sure that I'm not missing anything. I think one of the things that I probably want to hit on, since I am a nutritionist, probably food would be a good thing to talk about. So eating a good diet obviously is really important. And so if we're eating things like rancid fats, if we're cooking processed fats and processed foods and all of these things that create inflammation, that's not going to protect our skin. In the very least, it's going to start to create wrinkles. It's going to start to create, the saggy skin and the stuff that we don't want to see and we don't want to deal with. But it also is going to exacerbate inflammation, exacerbate the potential for cancers and chronic diseases that come up and we're suffering from all the time. So good healthy oils, as you know, omega-3 is really important. They're anti-inflammatory. But more is not better. So knowing how much omega-3 you need is important. Something that we can test for. Also, good olive oil, good avocado oil. If you want to cook with an oil, Cook with avocado oil. It can take high heat. Don't cook with olive oil. You can also cook on high heat with ghee. That's a good one if you can eat dairy. Okay, dairy is good for some. It's not good for many. Butter can take medium heat, and what am I missing? Coconut oil can take medium heat. So just be aware of the oils that you're cooking with, because those that can't take high heat, they become rancid, they become inflammatory, potentially carcinogenic, and we want to obviously avoid that. So know the oils that you're cooking with. What else? Sugar. Sugar is inflammation in a box or in a pie or in an ice cream or whatever it is. One of the things that I'm starting to see and read more and more that I find really interesting, and I'm getting way off topic, but I can't help myself because it's fun, is, we have sugar and fruit, and we're told we should eat, all of these servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Well, let's think about something. If we're thinking about when we get fruit, usually comes at the end of the season. Not always, but typically we're getting our fruit in August and September. I know that that's when we're starting to get it here. We're getting all these apples and they're amazing. And then the peaches are coming in. But what I'm reading is that, back before we had food the way that we have it now, is fruit was meant to start to fatten us up for the winter. So fruit's healthy. It's got all kinds of great stuff in it. It's got antioxidants. It is a healthy food, but we want to minimize it. We don't want to overindulge on fruit because it is sugar, okay? It's good and it's great to have it sometimes, but it's not great to have it all the time, especially if you already have blood sugar issues. You want to be really, really aware of that. So lots and lots and lots of vegetables. I don't care what your genotype is, lots of vegetables. And then we start to move into good healthy fats, meat if your genotype can take it, which most of us need meat, depending on the amount. Not everybody needs a lot of meat. Anyway, whole other topic. Good healthy fat, a little bit of fruit periodically, and vegetables. That really is the bulk of our diet. So all of those things are going to help us to have healthy skin, to deal with the sun better when we're in it, to tan healthfully as opposed to burn, but avoid the burn. Get pink. For depending on the person, I think it's 5 minutes for some, up to 30 minutes for others. So if you have darker skin, you need more time in the sun. And I know, my first time in the sun every year, and really I don't burn much anymore, but it doesn't, I'll tan and then I can spend more and more and more time in the sun. And I just love the sun anyway. It's the best thing in the world. So I hope this has helped a little bit. I hope if you have questions, you'll let me know. You can post them below. You can go to my website, tastelifenutrition.com. I try to get on, Facebook and social media as much as I can. It's not always easy. But let me know if you have questions. I love to talk about this stuff. I want to help. And if I didn't cover something clearly enough, because I know I tend to ramble a little bit, let me know. But I hope you all have a wonderful day. Let me know if you have questions, and and if there are other topics, let me know if there are other topics you want to talk about, because that helps me jump on Facebook Live a little more often than I have been. So everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.